Hello and welcome to the Daily Royal. My name is Shelby and I have been a royal watcher for the past 10 years. In this podcast, I talk about the daily events of 7 of the European monarchies. So I talk about Belgium, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Sweden. I upload Monday through Friday with occasional bonus episodes here and there. Today we are talking about all of the events from Friday, June 18th to today, Sunday, June 20th of 2021. I'm going to be really honest and just say that, I was really on top of keeping up with everything on Friday, and then Saturday, nothing really happened yesterday, and then today some things happened, and I've been busy all day, which is not super normal in my life, but it was wonderful. And so we're going to do a little bit of I'm going to look things up while I'm talking, and just a hybrid kind of episode, because that's what we have to do today. And then of course tomorrow we'll be back to a well-researched podcast. But today, I just had a social life this weekend, which doesn't happen very often, but I had one today. So, we are just going to go through and we'll talk about, the events over the past couple of days. So with that, we are going to start with the Belgian royal family. In Belgium on Friday, there were no events, and I think it was the same for Saturday, but let me confirm that, because there was something. Oh, it was yesterday morning. Okay, so on Saturday, King Philippe visited a school building that I believe is in Antwerp, that was being... I believe it was being constructed, it was under construction, and the school building collapsed. And so obviously this is causing a crisis, and emergency services are involved. There are victims. I haven't done a ton of research on this, but let me see what I can find here really quickly while we're talking. Obviously this is a tragedy and it's not something that we want to talk about. But I think it is important to try and get the details. So let me see what I can find here. So like I mentioned, this was a school that was under construction, so there were no students present. But of the construction team, 5 were buried in the rubble of the collapse and lost their lives, and there are 9 other injuries, which is, it's a tragedy. It's also a huge loss for the city in terms of the building. The building will have to be demolished, not that is anywhere above people who have lost their lives. But it's certainly a very stressful situation. So there was a search and rescue happening on Saturday to attempt to find remaining bodies, which is what King Philippe was, he was not obviously searching, but there to support the teams that were, because it's a tragedy and it's hard, and, everybody needs to be taken care of. And so King Philippe was there to show his support for their mission and offer, what support he could in terms of grief relief. And so that's a super big deal, and it's just very, very, very sad. So that is the only thing that was going on in Belgium today. And so now we are going to go ahead and move on to the UK. it was pretty interesting on Friday. So on the episode that went up on Friday, we talked about the launch of the Center for Early Childhood that the Duchess of Cambridge launched while I was recording a podcast on Thursday. So it was being launched at midnight, and I just wanted to talk about it for the weekend before the weekend hit. So I didn't want to include it in today's episode. I wanted it included last week. But then also on Friday, the Duchess of Cambridge took on a couple of different engagements to mark the launch, which I knew she would do, but I thought, well, we'll carry over the conversation. So she visited on Friday the London School of Economics, where she partook in a roundtable discussion with leading academics and practitioners in early childhood development to discuss the need for something like this center, which again is it's kind of a think tank without the lobbying piece of what we all think of a think tank as. It's a research center that will be focused on providing support in the best way that is research-based and will be able to help parents raise their young children so that we can have mentally healthier, mentally healthier, I'm not sure how I want to say that, generations to come, because of course that's so critical. And then she also, at the Kensington Palace Cafe, met with some of the parents that she has been speaking with to help continually shape her understanding of what parents need. So obviously Kate is a parent of young children, of children that are still in, well, I think only Louis is officially still in early childhood, that's 0 to 5, but she has raised, she is raising 3, and but she's in an incredibly advantageous situation, obviously. Her children do have a nanny at least, and one-on-one care, and are very fortunate, and but still making sure that they're mentally well is really critical, especially given the way that they're growing up. I think that's something that is more impactful now on raising royal children than was when, like, William was being raised, or even, like, the younger generation of royals are being raised very differently than their parents, for the better in terms of their mental health long term, I would assume. But, they do still have to make sure that their children are okay mentally to cope with the rest of their lives, but also they have a lot of resources, and so Kate has been meeting with parents regularly to determine what they need. So she sat down with a few of them at the Kensington Palace Cafe to talk about the project and just ongoing conversations. So that is what was going on Friday. And then on Saturday, finally, it was the final day of Royal Ascot, and finally Queen Elizabeth arrived, and it was the most exciting. She arrived to loud cheers and just utter excitement, which of course, like, I was thrilled when I saw her at Ascot. She looked so happy. Being at Ascot, of course, the Queen is an avid horse race fan, and she owns horses that are raced. Like, this is her passion. She loves it. And so it was really lovely to see her be able to make it once this year. And it was very exciting. So that is what was going on kind of officially, although I'm still not sure. Like, they never shared about Ascot officially. And then today was Father's Day in the UK and other places, but in the UK. And it was also the Sandringham Half Marathon, which, if you're from the States, is 13.1 miles. And if you're from anywhere else that uses, kilometers, I think it was like 20.1 kilometers, maybe, because I looked it up, but I don't remember now, of course. And so William launched that because they must have been at their home in Anglesey, and when he launched that, he did bring his children. So he brought George and Charlotte with him, so they were able to launch the race as well. And it was just cute. But I'm not sure if that was an official engagement, but I'm talking about it. And then I'm looking at the past couple of days of court circulars. So Queen Elizabeth's trip to Ascot did not make it on the court circular. William's event today did not make it on the court circular. But I obviously talked about them because, well, they happened. And so we'll look at Friday's court circular. And so on Friday at Clarence House, the Prince of Wales held a video meeting with the Prince's Trust International. And then we have the Duchess of Cambridge's 2 events. And so that is what was going on. So everything that we talked about, plus a couple of fun little snippets in there. I will not have pictures of the Cambridge kids and William on the website just because it seems like it was more of a non-official event unless they add an addendum, and then I will update the website to include that. But again, just try and only post about official events, try and only talk about official events, but because I wasn't sure if these were official or not because I hadn't done that research yet, I talked about them. But that's what that is. And so now we are going to move on to the Danish royal family's events for Friday. In Denmark on Friday, there were a couple of really cool events that Crown Prince Frederik did and Crown Princess Mary did separately, but they're still very cool. So first, Crown Prince Frederik was present for the ceremonial foundation laying for a new air base, which is the largest project in the history of the Danish Ministry of Defense, and it is going to hold some, I think, 27 or so F-35s, which are fighter jets, I think. My airplane knowledge is pretty limited, but I think that's what they are fighter jets. And the Danish military has recently purchased quite a few of them, and so now they need a home. And they are having their home at this new airbase that Frederick laid the ceremonial first brick of. Which is wonderful. It's very cool. But it was what I found very interesting. And you guys, I'm not a fashion person. I'm not a military aficionado by any stretch of the imagination. But Frederick was wearing a uniform that I have never seen him in before. So he was wearing like the Air Force uniform. But I've never seen him in that. I've only seen him in, I would assume, his Navy uniform. And so it was really bizarre, but kind of cool all the same to see him in that uniform. But so that was his event. It was very cool. And then also on Friday, Crown Princess Mary visited a senior care center with the Danish Minister of Social Affairs. So to my knowledge, this is, to my recollection, I should say, this is the first care center visit that Mary has done, even throughout the whole pandemic. But, some royals did and some royals did not in terms of visiting care centers. But so she visited one today to kind of learn about how they handled the past COVID pandemic. I'm so sick of calling it a year because it's been over a year, but how they handled COVID and all the changes and, they, in the post that was shared, talked a lot about the creativity and flexibility that was needed to figure out ways to make life good for the residents in the care facility. And so these are, when we talk about them, they're like, if you're from the States, they're similar to assisted living, where it's independent living with support people for the most part. It's not like a nursing home. Some have been, but in this particular case, it wasn't a nursing home. It was much more independent living situations with like communal elderly centers where they also live, which I think maybe are more common in this form in Europe than they are here in the States. I mean, they do exist in the States, but they don't seem to be as common to my understanding. But I also don't have anyone in my like immediate relation that needs them yet. But it was a very cool event. It was very, because it hadn't happened throughout the pandemic, it was just, it felt really special. And so I thought that was awesome. So that is what was going on with Denmark. I don't think there was any, you know what, there was. Hold on, let's take a look. I think there was something today. You guys, I'm not very good at having a half-finished script because I am reading off of it, or looking at it at least, and then I forget that there are things that I haven't talked about. So let me see if I go here. Okay, so today, the Queen Margrethe attended I can't figure out what play it is. Maybe it's called The Lighthouse, and it was at a outside theater in Tivoli, and it looks like, just going off of what I'm reading, it looks like Queen Margrethe was the costume and scene, like set designer for the performance, which is a thing that Margrethe does. She is very wonderfully crafty and has found like a little niche in terms of making costumes and set designs and art. Like she was the illustrator for the Danish translation of Lord of the Rings, I think. Maybe I think that's accurate for like a recent Danish translation, which is super cool. So she's just very crafty and will do this like a lot of winters. She'll do like Nutcracker costume and set design. It's just wonderful, and I love it. It's such a fun little thing that she does. And so she went to the performance today with her sister, Princess Benedicte. So that was wonderful. So that is what was going on in Denmark. I do think there was something going on in the Netherlands, but let me confirm that. I don't think it's a lot. It's anything that I can talk super like extensively about. No, it is not. So Queen Maxima today took part in the presentation of the 10,000th Spark Scholarship, which is a scholarship given by the Dutch Development Organization, it's called Spark, that provides scholarship for entrepreneurship studies to young refugees, from young Syrian refugees. That are, I think, in the Middle East and Turkey. Like, that's where they have found refuge. So, not a whole lot to talk about, a little bit more than a short segment, but that is the event for the Netherlands, included in the Danish section, because that's where we're at. And so now, I think we're also going to skip Norway, because it was just nope, we're actually going to Norway. Okay, let's go to Norway. In Norway on Friday, there were a couple of different events. One that I can talk about a little bit more in depth. And then the other one is one that happens every week. So on Friday, King Harold was presented the Guard Watch, as well as the Brigadier Leaf Schonk honors to soldiers in the King's Guard. So I meant to do a little bit more research on this, but the King's Guard is, the Royal Guard. There seems to be one in just about every country that we talk about. The only two that I'm not sure of are Belgium and Sweden. Like, I don't know if they have specific military units or military forces that are categorized as royal protectors. So, like, in Spain, they have the Royal Guard, or the Guardia Real, which translates to Royal Guard. In the UK, it's the Royal Guard. In Denmark, I think it's the Royal Guard, or maybe it's the Queen's Guard. And then in Norway, it is King's Guard, as we just talked about. And so very similar to when Queen Margrethe of Denmark will do the watch parade, this is a very similar thing that the King's Guard watch will be delivered by King Harold. It is a award given by the soldiers' peers, who showed like the strong leadership of the younger officers. And so I think it's a really cool thing. It's a military ceremony. I'm not sure if this is how it normally is, or if it's a much bigger thing in pre-COVID life, but it's certainly a very scaled down event where it was King Harold, the award winners, in separate audiences, and a mediator who kind of presented the watch or presented the Brigadier Leaf Schonk honor, with King Harold overseeing. And then they would take a picture with the king. It's a very cool thing. I do wonder what it's like in a non-pandemic world. I hope that we can find out soon-ish. But I wanted to talk about that because it was a big week for King Harold and Queen Sonja, and it was wonderful to watch. And I do love that he still had these events on Friday and kept with them even after, a week on the. Not that I think being on a yacht would be hard, but, after a week kind of traveling, and I was very glad that they had this event scheduled for this week. So that is what was going on in Norway. And then, of course, it was Friday, so there was the traditional Council of State meeting, which King Harold and Crown Prince Haakon also attended. And so with that, let's go ahead now and take this over to the Spanish royal family. In Spain on Friday, the entirety of, what I consider the entirety of the Spanish royal family, which I consider it one shy of, I think, what it officially is. But anyway, King Felipe, Queen Letizia, the Princess of Asturias, and Infanta Sofia attended a ceremony delivering the Order of Civil Merit to Spaniards. And this is a ceremony that happens. It's happened 3 times since King Felipe has been king, but it's always on or around the anniversary of his proclamation. It's a way to celebrate them. I do wonder if this means they're going to take them on more. So it seemed that they were just going to be on bigger anniversaries. So 1st, 5th, but then this one was for 7th, but also it was an extraordinary year. So a lot of the awards that were given out had relation to the pandemic and extraordinary work by Spaniards during the pandemic. And so the people who receive these awards are ordinary, everyday Spaniards. They're teachers, nonprofit runners, like nonprofit directors, things like that, nurses, like the people doing the everyday grind who typically wouldn't get honored for it, but then this Order of Civil Merit came out for exemplary services to Spain in, day-to-day life. And so I'm not sure if this is something that like King Felipe kind of had created. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, but I don't know. That's just my assumption. I don't know if that's the case. But the entire Spanish royal family attends. I don't think the girls attended the first one because they were pretty little, but they've attended the last two. So it was adorable. I just think this past week for the Spanish royal family was like amazing. Nothing can really top the like tour that they did last year of Spain and visiting all 17 communities, but like this was a pretty good week with the incoming state visit and football and ships coming from around the world. Like it was just a good week last week, and this was a perfect way to cap it off with the celebration of Felipe's 7th anniversary of his proclamation, which is crazy. Like every time there's an anniversary like this, I'm like, good gosh, I've been doing this for a long time. Like I've only been talking about it for a little while, but I've been watching it all happen for a long time. Like I can very clearly remember watching the proclamation and just, I think I had just graduated college, that's for sure. I think I had pretty recently either started a job or was getting ready to start my first job out of college when this happened. I don't quite remember the time frame, but it was just so wonderful. But I must have started my job because I can kind of remember like, oh, I have to go to work now. I mean, I loved watching it, and I watched it live. Like, it was crazy town. But it was so great. And I just remember thinking, and still to this day, like, I've watched it a couple of times since then, just as, like, background noise, and to practice my Spanish, because that's a thing I do. I watch Spanish royal family events to practice my Spanish. I'm getting quite good. But every time I'm just, like, so amazed by it because it was wonderful. So that was the official 7th anniversary is June 19th. So it was yesterday, but they held the event on Friday because y'all, King Felipe needed a break. He had been going for a week straight, which, like, I get is kind of normal for people, and it's normal for them too, but, like, it was a lot last week, and there were a lot of high-profile events, and, like, he was all over the country, last week. So, like, give him a break. He's back tomorrow. I mean, he had Saturday and Sunday, but still, that's what he wanted for his 7th anniversary as king, as a break. No, I don't know if that's what he wanted, but that's what I've decided he wanted. So that was their event over the weekend. Everything else was super quiet. It does look like we have another busy week this week. And next week, I know for sure will be at least one exciting event, which I have to start preparing for. And so that is what was going on in Spain. So now let's take a peek at the Swedish royal family. In Sweden on Friday, there were a couple of different events. So first, King Carl Gustaf held a meeting with the new governor of Jämtland County, I think is how you say that. I'm not entirely sure. It has an umlaut over it. And so he had one earlier in the week, and it was 2 new governors for the counties. So they have both been recently elected or sworn in. I'm not sure what the electoral process is for Sweden in the county elections. So he held those both on Tuesday and Friday. We talked about the one on Tuesday. And then also on Friday, King Carl Gustaf and Queen Sylvia presented the King's Medal for Merit in Swedish sports to different athletes who have represented Sweden exceptionally in the past, I think, year. This is an award that was created in 2019. And so this may have been the first award. There were some 2020 awardees, but I don't think they received like a ceremony like this. And even this one was still pretty scaled down and pretty casual. But it was a ceremony nonetheless, you know. Slowly but surely, things are feeling like they're a little bit back to normal with Sweden. Like, Sweden seems to be the furthest behind because they were the last to like catch on to this whole mandatory social isolation thing to keep COVID numbers down. So it is starting to feel like it's more normal again in Sweden. And they did announce over the weekend that Crown Princess Victoria's name day, which is a summer celebration in July, will be celebrated as kind of as normal, or at least the royal family would be at the concert, which is really exciting because last year it was Victoria and Daniel and Estelle and Prince Carl Philip and Princess Sophia also came, but it was, I mean, that was it. And I think like the organizer and the awardee of that year, like, it was pretty chill. I don't even know, I think it was televised, but I'm not sure. And typically Victoria Doggin is what it's called. I think I accidentally called it her name day. It's her birthday. And so they have a huge celebration on the island, and it's just really fun. And so I'm really excited. So they announced that would be somewhat normal this year, so fingers crossed. And then speaking of Crown Princess Victoria, on Friday, she met with representatives of the UN Development Program to discuss the development goals of the United Nations. And then Prince Daniel digitally participated in the graduation ceremony for cadets of the police academy. And at the time, there was not a lot of detail written on this, but I will go check now to see if there were any events over the weekend, although I'm fairly certain there were not. There weren't any scheduled, so where is it? Sorry, I'm looking this up on my phone, which is not how I normally look up their stuff. So there were no events over the weekend. It really looks like this week too, by the way, is going to be super slow for Sweden, which is fine. There's an event on Tuesday and an event on Friday. It doesn't mean that things won't get filled in, but it is very slow looking this week. But we are approaching summer, so things kind of ramped up in mid-May, and now we're going to kind of dwindle down again as in the lead up to summer holidays. And like I said, I've talked about this, but I'll talk about it here now as well. This podcast will go on a break in August, not a full break, but we will drop down to weekly episodes in August to give me some time to recollect myself and come up with new ideas. Although I've been coming up with new ideas and starting to implement them on like Instagram, but to come up with new ideas nonetheless, and also just kind of reset for the next couple months ahead. So we do that twice a year on this podcast. I take August and December to do like weekly episodes, because those are typically some slow months anyway. So that's the plan as of now. Definitely will take August to do weekly, and So we're gearing up towards that. Obviously, it's still like a month and a half away, but just I like to remind everyone because it feels really strange to be taking a break, because I think this is like, I don't know, it feels like I've been a lot more consistent this year so far, so I feel like I'm recording a lot more than I did last year in this time frame, which I probably am because COVID last year. But anyway, that is what was going on in all of our countries today. Please check out the website, thedailyroyal.com. Well, like I said, I'm doing some really great things over on Instagram, so go check that out at The Daily Royal. And then the Daily Royal podcast on YouTube. Not doing super fancy things over there, but each episode is also posted on YouTube. You can go check them out there as well. So with that, I am going to end this episode and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a fantastic Monday.